customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you are a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you.
Every day, businesses seek to make a profit, but sometimes the bottom line is not the best indicator of a company's long-term health. In the wake of the Great Resignation, companies are scrambling to retain employees and profits, and it turns out that one answer is the key to both. The Employee Experience Revolution, the newest book by John DiJulius and Dave Murray, divulges the little-known secret of how to become a more profitable company in both the long and short term. Happy employees. Your customers will never be any happier than your employees. Remember, your people create and deliver the experience that keeps your customers coming back. Read the Employee Experience Revolution and discover how you can build the type of company that helps employees be proud of the work they do and allows them to have an opportunity to live their best lives. Order your copy today at thedijuliusgroup.com.
Welcome, revolutionaries, to the Customer Service Revolution podcast. I am John DiJulius, Chief Revolution Officer of the DiJulius Group. And on today's episode, we will be talking about how to create such an exceptional employee experience that retains your rock stars long term. A great leader's goal should be that every long-term employee considers the decision to join your company and stay with your company as one of the best decisions they've ever made. We got to forget about talent wars and start growing our own talent. Too often, the majority of an employee's training happens in the first few months of their lifespan with a company. According to LinkedIn's Workforce Learning Report, 94% of employees say that they will stay at a company longer if it simply had invested in them more. In this episode, we will be sharing how employees will invest more of their heart and soul if they feel invested in. How great leaders are obsessively grateful and positive. How to get employees to brag about their job. How to have a CFO, a Chief Fun Officer. How to train the whole person, not just the professional side of your employee. And helping your employees find their ikigai. We'll be right back after this.
At the DiJulius Group, we know how difficult it is to provide an outstanding customer experience, especially when expectations are so high. That's why we created a framework that systematizes the experience you deliver. Our consultants use that framework as they work with your team to create a world-class brand experience that can be delivered simply and consistently, without affecting productivity or adding special software. Are you ready to be world-class? Visit tdg.click/Claudia to schedule a call and get started today. That's tdg.click/Claudia.
Welcome, revolutionaries, to this week's webinar of creating an employee experience that retains them, which is, we've talked about in the past, the recruitment experience, the onboarding experience, which is we think of the first 90 days. So this is kind of 91 days to hopefully retirement in 30 years or whatever they may look like, of how we build a culture moat that retains our rock stars, which all of this is coming from Mr. Murray.
Hello, John. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you. So the Employee Experience Revolution, the book is out in the pre-release. So we've seen some posts that people have received it if they ordered in advance. So that's really, really exciting. But as John mentioned, this is what we're talking about. It comes from the book. And one of the things that I love that this book really focuses on is this quote: "Great companies help people live extraordinary lives. Their leaders inspire employees to build lives of meaning and purpose." And when you think about keeping your folks around, this is really the important piece of it. This is the part that we really have to focus on. We really have to be providing that meaning. Otherwise, we're just trading dollars for hours, and who knows how long we'll be able to keep people around. So today's session is so important, as John mentioned. Once you get past the onboarding, you have your person, they're at their department, their location, wherever it is they're going. And then it's really up to that leader to start building that rapport and delivering that experience. So in the book, it's chapter number 6, creating an employee experience that retains them. And that's really what we're focused on here. It's building a better experience for our team members. Not only that they perform better in their roles, which they will if they have that environment, but also to keep them around longer. We all know how important that is these days with the expense to hire new folks and to always be looking and to be understaffed. It's just one of those hamster wheels that is not good to be on. And so one of the fixes is to just make sure that we're providing an experience that keeps our folks around longer. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
All right. And please tell us, so the book's out. If you had pre-ordered, you should have gotten it signed by Dave and I. And it also yesterday, June 10th, it released on Amazon. So one of the things I like to talk about is a lot of people, when I have an audience of leaders, I just did this in the restaurant industry, a bunch of restaurant general managers and owners from different locations, different brands. And I asked them, how many people started off in the restaurant industry 10, 20, 30 years ago, thinking that this was a temporary transitional job while they were in school, right? And it's so funny that you almost had to count the hands. There was about 800 people in the audience, and it looked like 780 hands went up. And what that means is that, they didn't think they were going to stick around, and they got sucked in. So it's really important. A lot of people, when they start with us, think that this is just a temporary transitional job. And so we want to make sure we're always painting a picture on the interview process, on the onboarding, but continuing that, hey, Dave, you're doing great. And I just want to let you know, you could be the next Denise. Denise started off in your position, 15, 20 years ago. And today she is vice president of or managing partner. And, if people are going to help you grow, that's really, really critical there. And, over 90% of employees training at one company happens during their first 3 months. So think about that. A couple of things wrong with that is, number one, when you work for one company, and that means you get 10% of your professional development only after your first 3 months. So everyone needs education. Everyone needs training to keep them motivated, to keep them cutting edge, to keep them engaged. But the other problem with this that we found is that we were putting too much training in their first 90 days. And so we realized that we were overwhelming them, and they didn't need all this training in the first 90 days. So we were able to back off and say, what do they need right now to be successful? And some of the things that we were training them on was really stuff they needed when they advanced, got promoted, became a full-fledged whatever, started taking clients. And that might not be for 6 months or a year. So why are we training them this now? So spreading that training so they can digest it and learn it better.
I think a lot of times that also works in reverse too, John. When we talk about service aptitude on the customer experience side of things, a lot of times organizations do something similar where they're focused on all the hard skills and put off the soft skills, and then they never get there, right? So the important thing to remember is spread out your training, but make sure you have the discipline to make sure that you get to it all, and then it becomes part of your ongoing process. Because the numbers on this slide back it up, right? 94% of employees say that they would stay at a company longer if it's simply invested in helping them learn. Now, here's the thing. Helping them learn takes on a lot of different looks, right? Sometimes when I think about, paying for college credits or whatever, sometimes that could be webinars, attending conferences. There are so many ways to continue your education for that ongoing learning, for that continuing education. And we just need to be looking for those opportunities. Some other statistics that are interesting, nearly 25% of Gen Zers and millennials say learning is the number one thing that makes them happy at work, right? So a quarter of that generation group, those two generation groups, are saying how important learning is. And think, is it an option at your organization right now? Is it a priority at your organization right now? If it's not, it should be. And another great statistic, 27% of Gen Zers and millennials say the number one reason they leave their job is because they didn't have an opportunity to learn and grow, right? So if you're just, like we said before, if you're just trading those dollars for hours and really not getting that opportunity to do something different, to expand your horizons, grow within the organization, you're going to lose people sooner. It's that simple. And here's a great quote from Reed Hastings when Reed said, once you stop learning, you stop excelling, right? Not only does it kind of keep us trapped in our role, but it stops us from reaching our full potential. And so who are we as an organization to not let our team members reach their full potential? So help them achieve that, help them have those opportunities so that they can continue learning. And at the bottom line, we have to remember, I love the quote on the next slide, that your customers will never be any happier than your employees, right? A lot of times organizations forget that. We kind of skip that internal piece of it, that internal customer, and just focus on the external customer. And when you do that, that's a big miss, right? That's a big opportunity that we need to make sure we're focused on in order to deliver that level of experience that we want to those external customers. We have to be delivering it to our internal customers as well. So many organizations miss the boat on that one.
Well, Dave, talk about, I don't know if it's the percentage or how often that you go in and start working with a consulting client as their customer experience consultant. And you've told me that they've stopped and put a pause on what you're doing and they had to redirect you.
It happens a lot. It happens a lot where an organization is convinced that they need some help externally with the external customer experience. And as we go through the process, as we're going through the partnership, we start to find things and we can actually make recommendations. Very often, they need to start internally and make some corrections there first in order to support the internal teams to then go out and deliver what they're looking to deliver externally. So that happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
And there's a definite payoff for this focus, right? It's not just to have happier employees. There's some real dollars and cents behind this and why we should be focused on this as organizations. First of all, companies with high employee engagement have 81% lower absenteeism, right? So their team members are there more often. They have 33% less turnover. For some of you in your industries, that's a huge number. Think if you were able to keep a third of your team members longer than you are right now, that could be a huge game changer for you. And a 10% increase in customer loyalty, which goes right back to what we talked about. There is an impact. If our team members are thriving, they're happier in their workplace, in their job functions, they feel supported, then we're going to have an increase that our customers are going to feel as well.
Also, Dave, I'm sorry, let me add, besides that, if your team members are around just by pure, being around, they're going to know the client. So now they're going to be able to personalize it and know versus every time they deal with a client or the client deals with our brand, they're dealing with a new person who doesn't make them feel like a VIP.
Right. When they're more engaged, they're looking to make that connection with the customer. Absolutely. And then the last one on this particular list, probably the most important and maybe the biggest aha of them all, companies with high engagement also are 23% more profitable, right? They're making more money at the end of the day. We hear pushback when we go in a consulting job, John, usually from the CFO. We hear pushback, whether it's an external focus or an internal focus. We hear, what's the return on this? Are we really going to get a return on this? Well, again, there are some real dollars and cents behind focusing on this, whether it's an external or an internal initiative. And most organizations probably need both.
100%. So what drives employee engagement, right? And that's what we're going to really focus on the rest of this webinar. And that's what this chapter focuses on, is the how. And, so you got to show career path opportunities. That's what we opened with. So less people think that this is a transitional temporary position until something better comes along. Recognition. Recognition is everything. And we'll give you some statistics of that. But your leaders should be trained to recognize, positive recognition. You got to have a director of fun. I think we called it, Jess called it, and she was our CFO and, our chief fun officer. And, whether you're big or small, you can have a director of fun or chief fun officer at locations, in departments. But these are just the people that are, coordinating events and get-togethers and happy hours and potlucks and, games and all those things that we got away from, during and after the pandemic. I love this, and we're going to talk about it a little later, but it's engaging with their families, writing thank you notes to spouses and parents, telling them what amazing contribution and impact their family members making with the organization. So, let's continue. Maid services. I got this from John Ruhlin's book, Giftology, and something that he talked about in his book that he gives his staff as an employee benefit is regular maid services. Like, that's great. And so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, I did this after one of our customer service revolution conference, I think, or maybe I thought to do it and I never did it.
No, you did it and it was great.
Okay. And so here's the thing. When you ask a lot of your employees, whether it's all the time or there's obviously peaks in everyone's business. And so our annual conference, the Customer Service Revolution, when you get, within a month, it is all hands on deck. And we are just all working. And then when you get in the week, no one's sleeping the week of, and you're taking your team members away from their families. And you got to keep that family member happy and thankful, because they could be your biggest competition, right? And they could be speaking in someone's ear saying, this job is too much. This job's taking you away. Got to be able to find something that isn't as demanding, putting pay aside. So remind me, Dave, we did this a few years ago, but I think as a thank you gift to all the significant others, we gave everyone got their house cleaned. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was during that busy time where we weren't home very often. We weren't on the road, but we weren't home. And so it was just a great gift because you knew that, some of our tasks at home were not being fulfilled. So it was a really nice gesture, not only for the employee, the team member, but also for the significant other.
Something that I did last year at the John Roberts Spa 30th anniversary, when they brought their spouses, that I didn't do on the 20th. So I've been waiting 10 years to do this. On the 20th anniversary, we bring everyone together, a nice, big fancy gala, and we recognize all the employees and their contribution when they started. And, some started 30 years ago, back then it was 20 years ago, and all this stuff. And I really regretted that we didn't recognize the spouses in the room. So I made sure at our 30th last year, the first people we recognized, we asked to stand up was everyone's significant other, unless they had just met him within the week. We didn't want to recognize them, right? If they were just a date. But everyone's significant other, because again, like any business, there are times when we take, in this case, their wives away from them, during the holidays or whatever. And so we made them, the significant other, stand up, and we gave them a standing ovation, which hopefully made them feel a little better. But gifts for the family, for their sacrifices. JR team member promotions, we talk about this in the book. So one of my favorite things in the salon business is when someone gets promoted. Now, in our business, a hairdresser, we'll hire them out of beauty school, and they'll have to train easily 6 to 12 months as an assistant, as a hairdresser's assistant, doing shampoo, taking classes, cutting mannequins before they can go on the floor. So when they're about to go on the floor and they don't know when, it's a big thing. So we will surprise them, and, they'll be working, and all of a sudden, their boyfriend, their husband, their parents, their sisters, their best friends will be in the salon, and it's always tears. So it's a really cool, special event. The book talks about so many great examples of engaging the families, making them part of it. So they really appreciate the type of company that your employees are working for. So, building a culture moat, that's what we want. That's what, we want it to look like, is that for our rock stars, who are going to get, enticed and recruited, we want to make it very hard for a company to attract our best employees from it. So, one of the big things that a lot of, the book, one of my great inspirations that I've enjoyed reading was No Rules by Netflix, and that's Reed Hastings. And it just, they talk about people don't like to work for a lot of policies, right? They want to have autonomy, and we have to stop policing our employees so much for what we're afraid 1%. High performers need innovation. Innovators need autonomy. Don't let one poor employees ruin your organization's freedom and flexibility. Employee freedom means that they can take a lot of risks and fail, and risk-taking breeds innovation. So fear kills creativity and innovation. Encourage risk-taking, and actually celebrate failures.
One of my jobs as the leader of Amazon is to encourage people to be bold. And people love to focus on things that aren't yet working. And that's good. It's human nature. That kind of divine discontent can be very helpful. But you really, it's incredibly hard to get people to take bold bets. And you need to encourage that. And if you're going to take bold bets, they're going to be experiments. And if they're experiments, you don't know ahead of time whether they're going to work. Experiments are by their very nature prone to failure. But big successes, a few big successes, compensate for dozens and dozens of things that didn't work.
And it leads right into this great quote from Tom Peters that I love, John, when Tom said, "I would rather reward spectacular failures than mediocre accomplishments." But think about your organization right now. Think about what is happening in a lot of organizations that we work with, especially when we first started working with them. We hear about the fear factor. I'm afraid to make a mistake. I'm afraid to look stupid in front of my peers or in front of my boss. I'm afraid to take a risk. I should know that. I don't want to make it seem like I don't know that. So there is a lot of fear out there just kind of naturally in organizations, and it stifles growth, and it stifles organizations achieving better things because some of that risk taking is not there because people are just happy with the status quo. So you have to keep that in mind, and you have to keep in this mind when we talk about building a culture moat, that 63% of employees who were recognized regularly said they wouldn't consider looking for a new job. So when John first started talking about this topic a few minutes ago, one of the things he said was recognize, recognize, recognize. Where are those opportunities to recognize your team members? Do you need to put a system in place to help your leaders do just that? This is a caught you doing something right card, or as we call it at the DiJulius Group, caught you creating a customer service revolution. And we use these internally. When we hear one of our fellow team members did something great, we can send that to their home. We can send it out to the rest of the team and share what they did. But it's a system that we have in place where we can do that regularly. And here's the other thing about recognizing. A lot of times where we kind of fall into the trap, and this will be a little bit of a theme of some of the other things we talk about in just a few minutes. Sometimes as organizations, we fall in the trap of just telling our leaders, hey, go start recognizing. But we don't tell them what it looks like. We don't tell them how often. We don't really give them any parameters. And the other thing about recognition is very often we really have to start building that as a positive habit. It takes focus. It takes time. We can't just tell our leaders to go do it and hope that we're going to start this great change in our organization and this revolution of happy team members unless we really help them build it into a positive habit.
Something else to this, Dave, now like we have, we're on Slack. So, and people are probably on Microsoft Teams or whatever is, we have a channel for that. And your leaders, it should come to them easier if they're being recognized. And you can, when it's on a Slack or a Teams, you can see who's being recognized and who's doing the recognizing.
Right. A really quick note on that too, John, one that we've talked about internally that I've seen a lot of organizations have an issue with. We always say praise publicly, recognize publicly, but reprimand privately. And I think what a lot of organizations forget sometimes is that Slack or Teams chat is a public forum, right? So if we're reprimanding a team member on an all-team Slack, that's basically reprimanding in public. So we have to adapt to this digital, right? It's not just the old-fashioned yelling across the room at a team member, which is reprimanding publicly. We have to really, while it's great for the recognition, sometimes we have to monitor ourselves how we're using it for some of the other things.
Right. Absolutely.
So when it comes to employee engagement, one of the things that the numbers tell us, what employees care about the most are these three things. Does this leader care about the company? Does this leader care about my success? And does this leader care about me as a person? That's really what team members are looking for. And think to yourself, are you offering that? Is that a focus of yours within your organization? For a lot of organizations, it's not. And we'll talk about in just a little bit here how you can be more focused on that. But think about those three questions and how important they are. Does the leader that I report to, do they care about the company? Because that I'm feeling good about it. That's our mission to move forward. Do they care about my success, my role, what I'm doing? And do they care about me as a person?
Yeah, and there's a lot of employee engagement surveys, and they're long and they're effective. But I think every once in a while we should do this. Just three simple questions. We do it on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best. And if a leader's score is less than 4.5, I mean, they got work to do and they can see where. But we work in the employee perception business. We can think all day how great we are and how much we care. But if our employees don't feel it, that's the reality.
The other thing we have to keep in mind is the age that we are working in right now, right? So with Teams and Slack and Zoom and all those things that we've talked
work
about,
from home. I mean, change this.
Yeah.
This, Dave, I mean, is a game changer. For the past 1,000 years, leaders never had to worry about these next two things. Right. It's never been taught in a management class or a company's leadership program until 2021, probably.
Right. And the first one is leading from a distance, right? Leading a virtual team, leading a team that's no longer reporting to an office, even if they were on the road a lot, but came to the office once a week, right? For a lot of organizations, those days are gone. And there's very little focus of being together as a team. And so how do you lead within that environment? How can you still be effective? We just talked about reprimand privately, praise publicly. And now that we're having to do that on Slack, are we doing that as effectively as possible? Are we following those same rules? Again, we have to adapt. And then the second one, of course, is employee mental wellness and how we've realized that that's such an important piece of the overall team member that we're dealing with and making sure that we are giving everyone the opportunity to take good care of themselves.
Yeah. And, I want to talk about a relationship hack here next. It's something that I do. I learned from Adrienne Bankert, who spoke at our Customer Service Revolution several years ago. And it's something we all know, but she talked about a relationship hack is think before you text. And what she meant by that is if I'm going to text Dave, hey, great job, or congratulations, or whatever it is, why not send them a video? And, and we've all sent video texts before, but, she just got me back on this and she's so right. When you send a video text, it actually takes less time because when you're typing it out, and then they're spelled correct. It's like, no, I didn't want to say that to you, and you got to go back and type it. Versus you just hold the phone and say, hey, Dave, I just want to tell you, you crushed it at that conference yesterday or creating that material or on that webinar, or whatever it is. So something I do, and this is to my kids, I try to think, can this be a video text? So in all three of my companies, well over 100 employees, one thing I always do, I've always sent them an anniversary text, right? Dear Susan, congratulations on your 3rd anniversary at John Roberts Spa or at the DiJulius Group. Well, since this, for the last 4 years, I send a video text. And I'm going to show you how quick it is. But you would think by their responses, I gave them a $100 bonus. So here's a quick one I just pulled out that I sent to someone last week. Hello, Ivy, and happy 1-year anniversary at John Roberts. You've made such a great impact in 1 year. I love your energy. I love your customer service. I love what you bring every day. We are so lucky to have you. I can't wait to see what you do in the future. I hope you're having a great weekend, and I hope to see you soon. So, and you could see her reply there. I mean, it just meant the world to her. I get a lot of compliments from spouses saying that, what a big thing, and in this business, I don't know Ivy that well, but I do know that she's a rock star at customer service. So it really helps me get in front of them more often.
If you enjoy what you're learning on the Customer Service Revolution podcast, you'll love our weekly newsletter, The E-Service. It's full of great customer experience tips and stories, includes special offers, webinars, and more each week. To sign up, head to tdg.click/e-service. That's tdg.click/e-service, ESERVICE. Enter your preferred email address, and you can look forward to great advice from John in your inbox every Wednesday.
So the next thing here is the day in the life of an employee. So I'm sure if you're familiar with us, we talk a lot about the day in the life of customer, and we show a video. Well, in this, we want to make sure leaders understand and remember what it's like to be an employee, a new employee trying to make, it's a paycheck to paycheck, and the struggles of this. So here is an example of Dave, who is a Sanford Health.
Yes, Profile by Sanford.
I'm sorry, explain a little bit about their business model just so people.
Sure. They help individuals focus on weight loss. So they're a counseling method. So patients of theirs will go in and have meetings and track food intake. So it's really an ongoing process focused on meeting with your consultant.
So this is following kind of like one employee around from the moment she gets up to the end of the day, and making sure leaders have compassion and empathy for them. So I love that, and that ties in with their customer experience action statement that should be applicable internally as well externally. But it's just to make leaders remember how important their employees are and what they're going through. The next thing I want to share with you is the DiJulius Group's leadership mission. And this is something that we want to advertise, or we hopefully advertise constantly to our employees at the DiJulius Group. The first part is we want you to make paychecks more than you ever thought possible. However, we want you to feel the money you made was the least valuable thing you received from this company. So we advertise that to our team members. So we have to live up to it, right? So Dave, you want to talk about the next thing?
Yeah, next we're going to talk about Ford, which if you've been around the DiJulius Group for any period of time, you probably know what Ford is. We talk about it all the time externally with our external customers, but it has such a huge application internally. And a quick refresher, Ford stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Those are the 4 pieces of information, the 4 types of information that are most important to us as human beings, the things that we are most interested in, spend most of our time on. And so one of the things we do when we're working with an organization focusing on the internal experience is we do what's called the Ford test. And so we ask everyone in the room, every leader in the room, to write down the names of 5 people that report to them. They don't have 5 direct reports. We ask them to supplement with people they work with on a regular basis. But write down 5 names of people that report to you, and then start to try and write down 5 types of Ford information on each one of those 5 types of, or those 5 people. One caveat, when we talk about O with the external customer, it stands for occupation. It's their job. It's how we as humans usually identify ourselves. It's one of the first or second questions we ask someone that we meet for the first time. What do you do? But when it's internal, that changes a little bit. Internally, when we talk about occupation, it's not the job they're in right now. It's where do they want to go? Do you as a leader know where they want to go next? What their next promotion they're hoping for? Do they want to switch departments? And are you helping them get there? So we ask everyone to write down those 5 names and try and write down 5 bits of Ford information on each one of those employees. What normally happens in most rooms when we do this test is most people can get 5 pieces of Ford information on the first 1 or 2 team members that they wrote down. Then they get to the third one and they're not quite certain. They get to the fourth and the fifth and they really don't even know where to start. And it just goes to show in most organizations, there's a big opportunity to build that relationship internally. And we know how important that relationship is to a team member's overall success within an organization. So it's really a huge area of opportunity in most organizations for leaders to be more focused on building relationships internally using this information.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I'll also share a little more on how to get that information in just a few slides, because it's not necessarily a form they fill out or an interrogation in a meeting. So we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But train the whole person. That's another big focus, especially coming out of COVID. How can we make sure that we're training the entire person that's working for us to set them up for success, not only in their role, but outside of the office, so they don't have those stresses, they don't have those problems going on. So we call them the 5 Fs, and they are finances, fitness, family, faith, and fun. So what does that look like for your team members? Are you giving them those opportunities to do those things, to learn about the best opportunities to save money for their kids to go to college, to make sure they have the time to get the desired fitness that they would like to get in, the workout or whatever that is, that they're spending time with their family? Are you actually facilitating some family events like John talks about doing with the John Roberts team and having significant others? There are so many ways to do this, but very often they are overlooked.
And a lot of times, we have, sometimes we have experts on the staff that can help with certain things. These are the number one New Year's resolution categories that people have. But a lot of times we'll bring in outside experts, and it's optional if anybody wants to talk. There's a mortgage lender coming on, right? And it could be a Zoom or it could be at a meeting. And we don't have to pay these outside experts because they get an opportunity to obviously pick up some customers. We're just trying to help balance people's lives. Do you know every Dottie you've come across? So I love this. I love to talk about this CEO, Charles Schwab, Walter Benninger. So recognize everyone regardless of their position and ask for their input and opinions. You may be surprised by what you learn. When the CEO of Charles Schwab, Walt Bettinger, was asked about the best lesson he learned in college, he answered that he wanted to graduate with a 4.0 GPA. And it came down to his last final exam. And this is what he said: I had spent many hours studying, memorizing formulas to do calculations for this case study. The teacher came in, handed out the final exam, and it was one piece of blank paper that he handed. The professor said, I have taught all of you everything I can teach you about business in the last 10 weeks. But the most important message, the most important question is this: what is the name of the lady who cleans this building? That test and lesson had a lasting impact on Benninger. And this is what he said: it was the only test I ever failed. I got the B I deserved. Her name was Dottie, and I didn't know Dottie. I have tried to know every Dottie I've worked with since. It was just a great reminder of what really matters in life, and that you should never lose sight of the people who do the real work. Love that.
So great. And along those lines, John, we always like to talk about Medtronic and other organizations that have unsung heroes, that have people behind the scenes that make it happen, but maybe don't necessarily get the glory or don't even necessarily get to see the customer, don't get to see the person that's benefiting from the work that they do. And so organizations need to be thinking about, well, how can we make that happen? How can we have them see the benefits of their work? And the story from Medtronic is so great. What they do is once a year, they are a manufacturer of pacemakers and other medical equipment. And so they have people literally in labs with semiconductors putting together these pacemakers, and they all have serial numbers, and they ship them off to hospitals, and they get implanted into people during surgical procedures. And so once a year, they started this process of bringing some patients out to their main headquarters, their main lab, and having a reception and allowing the patients to meet the scientists, the team members that actually built their pacemaker, that actually saved their lives. But thanks to the serial numbers on each pacemaker, they could actually track back who built what, who was part of what. So they could actually shake hands. As a team member, you go and shake a hand with someone that's thanking you for saving their life. How rewarding is that? And how much more significant is that as opposed to just going in and working on my semiconductors every day and putting these together and shipping them off to hospitals, right? It's just an amazing opportunity. And so we challenge organizations all the time. What's your amazing opportunity? What can you be doing for your team members, especially your unsung heroes, the ones that don't get the credit, don't see the end results? How can you bring that to them so they don't forget the impact that they have, because that's so important?
Love that. Love that.
And here's what we have to remember. Leaders who care about their employees and work for their employees, rather than thinking that their employees work for them, will disproportionately attract people that are hardworking and want to work for them. You're going to find those people. Word is going to spread. People are going to want to work for your organization or for your department because they know that exists, and word definitely spreads on that.
I like to, I think great leader, great company should help people find their ikigai. And ikigai is a Japanese word for finding your calling in life. And 4 things have to intersect. And this is great to, do with your kids as well as young adults. But first, you got to find something that you love to do, that you want to jump out of bed to do. But if you find something you love to do, but you can't be great at, that's a hobby, right? That's our golf game. That's, me playing baseball, old man baseball, right? So the second thing that has to intersect is something that you could be great at, something you could be in the top 5%. Now, what's it called if it's something that you could be great at, but you don't love to do? That's called a job. Okay. So you want to intersect what you love to do with something you could be great at, that someone's willing to pay you money for. And then finally, the 4th intersection has to be that adds a positive impact on society. That is your ikigai. And listen, that may mean that something in our company, it may mean for our employees, it's something somewhere else. I love this quote by Simon Sinek. Imagine a world where people wake up every day inspired to go to work, feel safe while they are there, and return home at the end of the day feeling fulfilled by the work they do, feeling that they have contributed to something greater than themselves. Love that quote.
So the only solution is one of us has to move out. It can't be mom because
my salary.
Your mom's very successful. Jake?
I'm the only one that laughs at your jokes.
Thanks, pal. Lisa?
I get straight A's.
Yeah, but it's 4th grade. Can't be Sally because...
I'm 6 years old.
So it's me.
Bye, Daddy.
I love that commercial. And it goes with this. Charlie Kim, CEO of Next Jump, said, if you had hard times in your family, would you ever consider laying off one of your children? And Charlie Kim he offers employment for life at Next Jump. And what they say is no brilliant jerks allowed. And what it means is you'll never get let go if you struggle technically, right? Or they'll give you more classes, they'll train you, they'll put you in the only thing you can get in a different department, the only thing you can let go for is a bad attitude, right? And so since they started this in 2012, the employment for life, annual sales have increased by 5 times, over $2.5 billion, right? Since launching the lifetime employment policy in 2012.
So what are the secrets to engagement? So one thing that we want to talk about is, what do we need to do as an organization to create this engagement that we've been talking about during this particular webinar? Well, Bain & Company, the great research firm, did a study a few years back. It was a global survey of over 200,000 employees. And a couple of things they found were pretty interesting. First, the people that were most disengaged with their work were people that were either in sales or support service functions. So that's a little scary because those are the 2 groups that are probably dealing with customers the most. But one thing that they did find in this study that was helpful, right? It wasn't all just doom and gloom. It reported on the types of disengagement, who was disengaged, but they also gave some solutions. One of the solutions was supervisors, not HR, not the CEO, not senior leadership. Supervisors have to lead this change in engagement. That's really, really important. And they also found that conducting regular check-ins. So think of it this way. If you're at an organization that's doing a big annual survey, 70 questions, 80 questions of employees on an annual basis, maybe scale that back. Maybe do that monthly and turn that into 6 or 7 questions every month, and then action on those, and then do the survey again. But here's the other thing that the study reported, which is hugely helpful. Regular check-ins just aren't surveys. Regular check-ins can also be what we call leadership one-on-ones or one-on-one meetings. Making sure that a supervisor, a manager, whomever is sitting down with team members and having conversations. Those are just so important to get away, go into a break room, maybe even go out to lunch, get away and have a one-on-one. They're so beneficial. All the things that we talked about today about driving engagement can really be helpful if we're focused on these. But here's the trick, what I want to share with you. You can't just go back to your leaders and say, hey, I want to start conducting one-on-ones because I think it's going to help our level of engagement. Because if you did that, if you went back and told 20 managers, go conduct one-on-one meetings with your teams, you're going to get 20 different versions of that, right? Every manager is going to interpret that a different way and conduct it a different way. So what we recommend and what we do with our client base is help you or make sure that you have a one-on-one template. Train your leaders as to what that one-on-one should look like. So here's a great example from ATI Physical Therapy that we worked with. As you see here, it's a 30-minute meeting, and you pick the cadence. Some organizations want to have these happen weekly. Some organizations, there's no way that can happen. There's too many team members, that's not going to happen. Some organizations do it monthly. Some organizations do it quarterly. You find what works best for you, but the key is you then have to make sure that they happen and that they happen well. So in this particular format, what ATI created was this template to make sure that within the 30 minutes, these 4 important pieces were going to be touched on. The first 5 minutes, an informal catch-up. Just learn about that team member. We talked about the Ford exercise before. This is where you have the opportunity to organically learn, just in conversation. Again, not interrogation, not asking those questions, just learning about the employee in your informal catch-up. The next 10 minutes is the employee's concerns. You have to remember, this meeting is as much, if not more, the employees than it is yours. So many one-on-ones, managers mistakenly feel that I just have to give you things to work on. To do my job as a manager, I have to find your faults and tell you how to fix them. You also need to hear what's important to that employee, what's on their mind, what they're looking at for maybe a continuing education opportunity, what's concerning them, whatever that may be. So that first 10-minute segment of the meeting is the employees, for them to share whatever they'd like. The second 10-minute section comes in, and that is the leader giving their notes, their comments, their maybe praise, maybe some opportunities to improve, whatever is needed to be talked about. The last 5 minutes of this meeting is then action planning. So we're making sure that whatever has to happen next, whatever you need to do, whatever I need to do, we're doing those things so that when we get together for our next meeting, we are moving the needle, we are making some progress. Here's another great example from our friends out at Alpenhaus in the Albany, New York area. As you can see here, they have a personal, so on their template, they have personal up top, starts with personal to make sure that the leader's focusing on that, building rapport, how important that is to show your support for their life outside of the office, outside of their primary job function. And then it does dive into what are their goals, what are their issues, what are their concerns here at work. So again, you can't just tell your leaders to go and deliver one-on-ones. You need to help them to make sure that they're happening correctly and that they're effective.
Leadership philosophies. I have two. Two of my favorite is one, I will be disappointed if you're going through hard times and do not let us know. And I say that to be nosy, but we have resources, we have connections, we can make introductions, we can allow whatever you need as team members. And my second favorite one is I'll be disappointed if you ever miss an important family event for work. And that always can't happen, but I think 95% of the time, our employees and all our businesses can make up for something. Yeah, like most companies, we have some blackout dates, some, non-negotiable dates, but our employees know that way ahead of time. And hopefully that timing doesn't. And listen, if it's something really important, they win. That family event. So that's something that we like to articulate to all our employees and all our companies, that gets talked about a lot and gets bragged about. Our employees brag about to their family and friends.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give the Customer Service Revolution podcast a thumbs up and write us a review. To hear more episodes, subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening and for being part of the Customer Service Revolution.